Good evening. I'm Rebecca Baker.
And I'm Emily Rodriguez.
We welcome you to the third presidential debate of 2018 between Democratic candidate Governor of Maryland Barbara Torres
and Republican candidate, former Vice President John Prescott.
The debate will conduct of 4 segments for 5 minutes. Each segment will have one question and each candidate has a minute to respond. Then it will be open discussion for the rest of the segment.
Thank you for being here today. We are going to start with segment 1 on immigration.
As of 2018, there are millions of U.S.-born children whose parents are undocumented and are at risk of being deported and separated from their children. This reality has brought much suffering to immigrant families as well as sympathetic American citizens. The current legislations have a zero-tolerance policy towards any illegal immigrant. So any illegal immigrant that enters the United States will be placed on prosecution, leaving the children under no custody. This question is towards you, Mr. Prescott. Given this issue, do you believe undocumented parents with U.S. citizen children be deported?
Well, first of all, anyone, whether you're African American, white, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Anyone who enters the United States illegally should be deported due to the fact that it is a crime. This is a law that was passed by Congress. Therefore, we must abide by the law. The failure to restrict illegal immigration entries completely undermine the sovereignty of this country while harming the interests of countless Americans. These undocumented parents know exactly what they're doing. Furthermore, they are 100% aware this is against the law. People may agree amongst themselves how it is wrong to deport these families back to their homeland, yet fail to realize these parents are using their kids as a human shield to enter this country.
Governor Torres, your response?
Well, as we know, immigration has increased drastically in the past 20 years. And I believe I read once it is about a 16% increase since the year 2000. The issue of these anchor babies, as they are known, has been brought up since then. And on a personal account, my own parents were one of these immigrants, and they even went through the struggles of adjusting their status. I am one of these U.S. children who may not have been able to be raised by her own parents simply for the lack of attention to this great issue. Although citizens ages 21 or older are allowed to help their parents process a citizenship, at that stage in their life, there is no issue. The issue we are addressing here is with minors who need the support of their parents. So in my opinion, no, I really do not believe there is a necessity for them to be deported. I believe these people still, no matter what, have the right to raise their children.
Now we will begin the open discussion.
Ms. Torres, what would you make to solve these issues on anchor babies?
Well, first, I'll replace the zero-tolerance policy with a new system. This new system will state multiple exceptions for illegal immigrants due to the many difficult circumstances that exist, and with those, including that of these anchor babies.
I'm sorry, if I may ask you, what exactly are these exceptions?
Well, I have not determined that at the moment, but what we're definitely trying to do is avoid separating families and ridding immigrants from the great opportunities you know our country has to offer them.
I may know that, but how are you mentioning all this when you're completely oblivious to these unknown exceptions?
Yes, it is definitely up for further discussion, but that can be elaborated on once it's firmly possible.
Well, Governor Torres, I must admit, you do mention some valid points, but some. These exceptions that you talk about completely contradict the 14th Amendment. Governor, are you aware the 14th Amendment was ratified for freed slaves to become citizens of the United States, to make them equal citizens, and to unify the country? It is transparent that it is different than illegal immigrants coming to the country and having children just to be able to stay. We must reinforce our borders to seize these immigrants from committing crimes and stealing our jobs. That is why, if I am elected, I will continue the works of building the wall in order to secure our borders. Yes, I do support President Trump's idea. I have no issue with immigrants coming here whatsoever, as long as it's done the right way, legally. This is not me presenting discrimination towards any race who wishes to enter. It is simply me following the law. I will also exterminate further usage of the DREAM Act. This act is raising the taxes of fellow Americans in order to assist these immigrants in entering legally, which all do not agree to do so. Furthermore, it creates a rise in government deficits. An increase of individuals means an increase in utilization of the limited resources, such as education, healthcare, social security, which will eventually lead to bankruptcy.
Wait, so I noticed earlier you stated that you understand the situation of immigrants and have no problem with them, but as Vice President to President Trump, you supported many of his racial slurs and discriminatory remarks, specifically those about Hispanic and Muslim immigrants. Am I correct?
Well, Governor Torres, in the last year, you must admit, this country has been susceptible to terrorist attacks. Am I wrong? Unfortunately, the Muslim community has been behind most of these tragedies, so I believe a temporary ban on the Muslim community is necessary in order to keep our country safe.
We will now be moving on to segment 2 on healthcare.
The Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, is a healthcare coverage that requires people to buy private insurance policies. The act was created and passed to increase the amount of individuals with healthcare. However, according to Vox, about 28 million Americans lack healthcare in mid-2017. For those in the audience that don't know, single-payer healthcare is when taxes take the responsibility to subsidize healthcare for all those residents under the same price. Torres, this question is towards you. Do you support the implementation of a single-payer healthcare insurance system to reduce uninsured individuals?
Yes, I am a very firm supporter of a single-payer healthcare system. It would be very beneficial both economically and medically to our American citizens. I understand the large federal spending increase that worry many, and yes, it is difficult to imagine such a system being sustainable. But then again, it has worked and continues to work today in many countries. It works in countries such as France, Canada, Denmark, Norway, and I believe it's even active in the UK. It is a great way to secure health for all our citizens and eliminate the economic barrier to achieving this universal care, especially considering that our medical services are among the most advanced and helpful in the world. All of our people should have equal access to that. Healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. It should be considered an American right.
Mr. Prescott, same question goes to you.
Absolutely not. I do not support the implementation of a single-payer healthcare insurance system. Everyone has this idea that it would save a tremendous amount of money, but they're all wrong. Single-payer healthcare is not free. The money has to come from somewhere. You know how it gets paid? By raising taxes. I would not raise taxes of everyone just to support a detrimental healthcare system that I know will not work. If the United States adopts this system, the quality of service to the citizens would plummet drastically because of the millions of people who are desperately trying to see a doctor. The doctors would feel inclined to examine the patient as fast as possible in order to assist the next patient. Doctors wouldn't be able to thoroughly treat one for the time they need due to the line of citizens awaiting for their possibly inadequate medical service.
Now we will begin the open discussion.
Do you believe that with single-payer healthcare, it will decrease the quality of the service?
Well, that's actually not the situation at all. It is actually a very organized system, and it is way faster too, since there is no longer a need for an insurance processing. Accounts from citizens in a Canadian hospital even stated that they have never waited longer than an hour to be attended. Their service has been through a 20 to 40 minute time frame. And also, because of the steady budget that this system will be providing, every hospital will most likely be much better staffed than it is now, therefore leading to faster and even higher quality service.
One fact I do. In the United Kingdom, wait times are excessively long to receive non-emergency surgery. Patients are waiting up to a full year for a much-needed surgery. Doctors may even begin to feel like slaves because this system is the same as a random person going up to the doorstep and asking for assistance. This country already has a shortage of doctors, and adding this will only make the problem worse. It would be great if everyone could be covered and everyone would agree, but we don't live in that world. Governor Torres, it's interesting because you say you want immigrants to stay and come in so badly, but you support single-payer healthcare. The reason most immigrants come to our country is for better care, and this single-payer healthcare system eliminates that because everyone will be seeking treatment. Immigrants come in because their homeland, such as the UK or France, or wherever they come from, leave to come to a country where it is easier to treat and see patients. With this system, immigrants will be less likely to come.
Well, it's funny you should say that, really, because I see most of these immigrants coming in from third world countries and places with inadequate technology and resources and almost no medical system.
And you're absolutely right. But where you're wrong is that this single payer healthcare system is the facilitator to the citizens of these countries believing that it has turned into a third world country because of the taxes being raised per capita and everyone rushing to seek medical attention. This creates a huge fluster, and the quality of service will decrease, convincing the people that their homeland has become a third world country.
Well, it's financed by taxes, so citizens will not need to add any extra costs to their monthly expenses. And yes, most households will be paying more than what they were paying originally with private insurances, but they are yet guaranteed coverage. Taxes may be increased, but it still won't be anywhere near the cost of a quality medical insurance, or much less a hospital bill.
Moving on to segment 3 on education.
This year, schools are experiencing a reduction of public school funds. Therefore, teachers are striking to protest low pay and benefits. For instance, in Oklahoma, numerous of schools were obligated to change a 5-day week to a 4-day week. Meanwhile, other schools don't have textbooks or other basic resources for students to learn. Governor Torres, if you were elected president, how will you address the lack of public school fundings?
Well, public school funding can definitely be more diverse. I believe we first have to pull away from the areas we are overfunding, such as sports, technology, and especially charter schools. Charter schools should be the main focus because it offers absolutely no benefit or purpose to us spending our already limited funding. Charter schools actually receive less funds than public schools, therefore endangering their quality of education and resources. Although they are in charge of their curriculum and regulations, their budgets don't allow them to offer services such as sports, extracurricular activities, and sometimes even provided transportation for the children. Charter school supporters even claim that they offer their new opportunities and original forms of teaching for everyone, especially for those in low-income societies. But most of them run through a lottery system, so the diversity is much less controlled and student body is limited. Our funds can much rather be put into better qualified teachers, and improved curriculum, and especially better lunches. It is not a beneficial system, and most definitely not a productive place to put our money.
Mr. Prescott, your response?
Thank you, Governor Torres. But are you aware that all public schools offer the same thing, while on the other hand, charter schools offer a different approach to education, which can be very beneficial, including new regulations, and the curriculum differs than those of public schools for students. Unlike public schools, charter schools don't focus so much on standardized testing, which can really stress the students out, which can then make them unable to study and make them feel like giving up. Students may even be more enthusiastic because they weren't forced to go to school like many kids are. They chose it. And may I also mention, the usage of charter schools can greatly benefit not only those in lower class neighborhoods, but can also benefit the higher class citizens who work in these private organizations. With charter schools being open all year, the income to these businessmen and women will increase, which can lead to school fundraisers to help the students in need of school laptops or school supplies in general.
Now we will begin the open discussion.
Mr. Prescott, can you elaborate on the benefits on charter schools?
Well, charter schools also offer the same atmosphere of a private school, with smaller classes, therefore making it easier for students to learn. And let's not forget, they lean heavier on the more successful schools compared to public schools. A charter school specializes in a particular area. That's what makes them so unique. What do I mean by this, you might say? Well, a charter school may specialize in science classes for kids who wish to be scientists. This method is tremendously significant for students to acquire a more exciting learning experience and can make one enjoy the company of their classmates as they study their future career preference together. Charter schools offer more freedom with being able to change and try new policies, unlike public schools, who all follow the same regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Prescott. Well, referencing what you stated about state-enforced testing and the stress it causes students. Yes, I understand the detriment that is standardized testing and the anxiety it is causing our students. But at the end of the day, a student quality measurement system is required when it comes to situations such as that of college applications and dividing students into levels of comprehension. It is understandable that not everyone's intelligence can be measured through a simple test. Not everybody is a good test taker, as they call it, and may be far more intelligent than their test scores convey. But it is the most convenient and, let's be honest, it's the most realistic way of analyzing it. So maybe, instead of focusing on investing in charter schools, we can invest in a much more elaborate yet simple testing system so it is not as stressful but accurate. Oh, and about students having the choice, they don't really have the choice because most of these schools are being based on a lottery system. So if anything, the school has the choice.
The problem with that is public schools won't change their stressful tests. As I stated before, public schools are not open to change and continue to keep their same regulations, while charter schools, on the other hand, are open to change for the better of the students. But by the way, you do agree that they have the flexibility to feed off successful schools and put these ideas into action because they don't have to follow county bylaws?
Well, yes, they do have the right to build their own rules, but with the limited funds they receive from public schools, they do not have the sufficient resources to enforce these improvements that they say they implement on their system. So there really is no difference.
Set?
Now moving on to our last segment.
According to the organization Every Town for Gun Safety, a total of 65 shootings have occurred on school campuses across the United States as of October 4, 2017. With this in mind, do you believe Army school faculty will improve on school safety?
Yes, I generally believe arming school faculty will improve school safety for various reasons. The first is that if we train teachers to handle a gun responsibly, it will greatly improve school safety because they can deter a school shooter from targeting an easy target. It can threaten those who wish to harm the school and students in any ways. Arming faculty, such as the teachers, security guards, and office staff, can greatly reduce the amount of school shootings. If somehow a shooter does appear to open fire during school hours, the staff can report to the shooter faster than the police can, preventing less damages to the school and students if no gun were on school campus. According to CNN, there has been an average of one school shooting per week in 2018. School shootings have been on the rise, and the only hope to seizing this detrimental issue is to arm school faculty because this issue is getting completely out of hand.
Thank you, Vice President. But I say no. The arming of teachers comes with too many doubts and risks. There are endless amounts of options to secure our children's safety in school, but filling schools with the one thing we are protecting them from the most will only arise even more conflict. Also, think of those troublesome students that can't really be avoided at every school. If the weapon is accessible to these kinds of students, we are simplifying these catastrophes for them. But if we implement the use of these guns and put them under max security, how will the teachers access them in an absolute emergency? It completely defies their purpose. Also in question is the training of these teachers, whether they are ready to handle such a responsibility, both morally and mentally. The benefits of a teacher carrying a handgun on school grounds during school hours and while under the liability for caring of children is unpredictable.
Now we will begin the open discussion.
When do you think it is a good situation to withdraw the gun?
The storing of the weapon is one of my biggest concerns. Will it be secured enough for the students to not be able to reach it? But will it also be easily accessible for the teacher in the case of an emergency?
Well, the storage of the weapon can be in a safe where only the staff can unlock it, so no student is threatened by the gun that is out in the open.
And what also concerns me is how this topic endangers these teachers' careers. Because if they are obligated to follow these rules, which they do not feel even competent to do, they might resign to their jobs and be left out in the cold.
Well, that is not entirely true. Those teachers who wish to be armed must go through training, and those who will be given the opportunity are the most trustworthy.
Okay, and will you be reasonable with those teachers who would not like to be armed?
Of course, again, it is a big responsibility, and I'm aware of that. So I would not obligate those to take action on something they are comfortable with, but through training courses, the teachers would familiarize themselves with handling a gun. I can, yes. If an active shooter has entered the hallways and is in the premise of his or her class, the teacher can order the students to hide under the desk and inform the class that she has to withdraw her weapon for the student's protection. In this case, that would be the only option and would be the best defense against the threat.
But Mr. Prescott, you forget the probability of a student who is not cooperative and may want to defend his classmates as well. If the issue has gotten to a point where the teacher must put her firearm to use, what would happen if she were to accidentally shoot a poor student? A poor defenseless student.
Well, Governor Torres, the teacher would have given an order for everyone to get out of harm's way for their protection. In this situation, I believe the kids would follow her orders because of the danger they would do, or if they would be in if they did not. They should understand the predicament they are in. They are fully aware the teacher will open fire if needed to. That is the reason we have enlisted guns into the school. She has no other choice. There is a threat in the presence of them. What else is there to do?
But Vice President, you still haven't answered the question. What would happen if a teacher were to shoot a student while attempting to defend the class?
Well, Governor, you have to understand the issue at hand. If she happens to shoot a student, or he, when the active shooter is nowhere near them, then the reason for shooting them would be due to carelessness. Then that teacher will immediately be stripped of his or her firearm. That is the rule, and we would not play around with that. If you accidentally shoot a kid without the active shooter anywhere near them, their gun privileges will be stripped.